that was it. Because, anyway, her housemate was swept her and ended up getting that was really unbelievable.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We reconvene here.
The house.
On behalf of the board and the chancellor, I want to again thank President Workentine and the chancellor for the tour this morning. It was great. Staff, faculty. I am a representative of the Academic Senate on the board, and Beth Smith is here this morning, and David Marsh from the Senate. And I was talking to them this morning, and on behalf of the Academic Senate, they want to express our thanks for really doing a fantastic job here, and really in the presentation about the work that the staff and the faculty do here. It comes across very clearly that very dedicated to delivering the instructional support services that the area needs. So, again, thank you very much. Chancellor?
Thank you very much, President Baca, members of the board. Again, all of you here at the college, thanks for that wonderful tour this morning. It really is great to see students interacting with faculty. We actually got to walk through a classroom. I felt sorry for those students. They thought it was a group of undertakers coming through or something. We're going to start today's agenda off with a little bit of switch that we made late yesterday and go to item 4.5, state and federal legislative update. And I'd like to ask Vince Stewart to come forward, take the podium. We'll pick up with that item and then complete our agenda.
Good morning, President Baca, members of the board, Chancellor Harris. Just want to say thank you very much for making the adjustment to yesterday's agenda. The family emergency that I had is resolved, so all is well, but I'm glad to be able to join you this morning. Before getting into talking about some of the key bills that I wanted to raise this morning, I just wanted to note a couple of things. The first is that in your packet we have provided the state ledge update and the federal ledge update, as well as the matrix. As you might recall from previous meetings, we would normally distribute that at the meeting. We're going to really try going forward to provide those to you in your board materials and then provide a single one-page update of recent actions, which I'm told you received yesterday. Related to that, as we look to the close of this session, final recess is this Friday. I just wanted to mention that we have been tracking well over 200 bills, and most of those, if not all of those, have had some significant impact to the community colleges. And I really wanted to recognize the work of the GR staff in terms of their efforts to monitor those bills, keep track of where they are in the process, and also recognize the work of the divisions. I think they've done a terrific job in terms of responding to us and providing the analyses and amendments when needed on several key bills. So that has made my transition into this position much smoother, and I appreciate that work very much. In terms of the bills that I wanted to cover this morning, there are really 5 that I think are key that we've been tracking very closely the past several months. All of these are in Tier 1. The first of which is SB 576. This was actually our sponsored bill. This bill would add a community college representative to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, and this bill was signed by the governor, so we're certainly pleased with that outcome and wanted to recognize the work of Justin Selnick on my staff, who was responsible for really shepherding that through the process. The other bill that I would like to mention to you this morning is SB 173. This is legislation authored by Senator Carol Liu dealing with adult education. This bill is actually now a 2-year bill, and I believe you had a presentation yesterday on adult education and the work that's happening between our office and the Department of Education. So I think this legislation was put on hold in recognition of those efforts that are going forward between our 2 agencies. The third bill I'd like to mention is SB 195. This bill is also by Senator Carol Liu, and this bill deals with establishing higher statewide goals for higher education. The bill was recently amended to really scale back and really focus on goals as opposed to metrics, which had previously contained several metrics in terms of measuring progress toward goals. And the goals in the bill right now are really tied to what extent is public higher education meeting workforce needs, what are our efforts to be more efficient and effective with the use of state resources. So that bill is pending right now on the Assembly floor, and we will be certainly watching that. The fourth bill that I'd like to mention is SB 440. This is a bill by Senator Padilla. It deals with follow-up to the associate degree for transfer that was originally authored by Padilla through legislation in 2010, which was SB 1440. We have worked with our partners at the CSU as well as Senator Padilla's staff to really address some concerns that we had with this legislation early on. And there's really one outstanding issue at this point, and that deals with area of emphasis degrees. So as you might recall with the 1440 process, the notion is that students would complete their first 60 units at the community colleges and then transfer to the CSU and complete their remaining 60 units. The concern around an area of emphasis degree is really the broadness of those degrees, and those were originally designed to help students who had not yet decided on a major to enter the transfer pathway. So while we certainly have concerns with how that will be developed, I think we will make every effort to develop those in good faith and really see those through. But I do want to recognize the work of Beth Smith and our academic senate, because I think they've been very effective in communicating some of our concerns to the author. The final bill that I'd like to mention is AB 955. This is the bill dealing with summer and winter intersession. This bill was heard on the Assembly, the Senate floor yesterday. It has been amended significantly. It is now a bill that creates a pilot program for 6 colleges. Now, while I think that's an improvement over where we were previously, I think we still have the original policy concerns with that legislation and feel that raising fees and providing really a pay-to-play process for students to attend summer and winter intersession is not the appropriate state policy. There are 2 things that I would like to mention with respect to that bill as well. One is that I think there are issues with the pilot sites that have been identified, and to what extent are they even eligible. And then 2, I think there are still concerns around the financial aid components of those bills. So those are the 5 bills that I had wanted to review this morning. We also had in your packet an outline of the President's plan on college affordability, and we will be monitoring that work going forward. Right now it really is very general in nature, but as more specifics come available, we will certainly be reporting back to you. And then the final item I want to mention is with respect to our 2014 legislative agenda. We are developing proposals now, and my expectation is to enter into discussion with Consultation Council in October or November, and then bring back recommendations to you likely in January. So with that, I'll stop there and see if you have any questions or comments.
Member Linsky?
I have a question because I haven't read 440.
Certainly.
And I wanted to know the way the sentence in our packet read, if that's in fact the way it is. It says, California community colleges to create associate degrees for transfer in every major that has an approved TMC.
That's correct.
So even if a college doesn't have a program in theater arts, they will still be required to come up with some way to create.
No, it's only if the college offers that major.
If it has an existing major. Okay.
Exactly.
That's been there before, okay.
Before we go on, we do have a public address.
Rich Copenhagen from the Student Senate for California Community Colleges.
Good morning, board members, Mr. Chancellor. Oh, there we go. I just wanted to come forward on 2 notes real quick. The first of which is I want to thank the Vice Chancellor, the Chancellor's Office, the Board of Governors for your outstanding work on Assembly Bill 955. It has been an incredibly uphill battle on that bill, but as Vice Chancellor Stewart mentioned, it's we've made some strides in making sure that bill doesn't negatively impact our system too much. We're still, of course, trying to fight against it to make sure that all of our students have access to all of the classes that they need. But the other one is on Assembly Bill 1358, which is the bill that the Student Senate authored. sponsored, excuse me, authored by Assemblymember Fong, which will take us leaps and bounds to be able to have a more sustainable funding structure and make us a more viable, consistent system partner to make sure that we're able to regularly represent all of the students in the state in an equitable fashion. We've had some policy disagreements with some of our partners on the bill, but I would like to thank the Chancellor's Office for putting a very large amount of effort into making sure that the bill does what it's supposed to do and protects the student leaders that come after us and make sure that it's really a good policy that works for all of us. So I just wanted to publicly thank them for their work in partnering with us and making sure that that bill works well. So thank you.
Members, Vice President Moore.
First, thank you for your report. And will you be covering federal as well later, or should I ask?
No, the federal, we had outlined, I think, about a half dozen bills at the federal level. Congress was in recess for the month of August. They returned yesterday. So I expect that we'll be providing additional information, likely in writing and at your next meeting. And then, again, the one summary that we provided on the President's plan. But if you have a question, I'm happy to
No, I
address.
just wanted to compliment the Chancellor's Office, too, also for the proactive stance we're taking on federal relations. You mentioned yesterday the trip to Washington a couple weeks ago, and I do hope that we can find a way to keep that presence robust and regular, because those relationships are important, and I think that the system has an opportunity to lead the nation, but we have to actually be there to remind them about the innovations that are happening in places like West Hills, as well as system-wide, that can be models for the rest of the nation. And so I'm hoping for more of that.
I appreciate that, and under Vice Chancellor Stewart's leadership, we've had conversations in recent weeks. As the board may recall, years ago, the system had permanent presence in Washington, D.C., as well as staff relation with that unit in Sacramento. We obviously, in the years of multiple budget cuts, had to back that presence out, and in recent years, again, more cuts really have had to minimize our federal footprint. Vice Chancellor Stewart really has begun to have some conversations about how we get more of a presence at the federal level, both on an ongoing basis and then, as you point out, on a very regular basis, us going back to D.C. We do have a lot, I think, to share at the federal level with what's going on in California as a means of impacting federal policy. And if we don't show up and don't comment, then unfortunately we have to suffer the byproduct of that. So I couldn't agree more, and I appreciate the board's support of that.
And I'm just going to make one plug for something that happens to intersect with two hats that I'm wearing today. One of the organizations I work for is co-sponsoring a forum on increasing resources to connect schools across the nation with broadband funding through a rules change that's before the FCC on E-rate. And we heard yesterday from Keitha about how impactful we have been in providing and stewarding those grant funds locally. And so there's that opportunity that significant more resources may come available to connect our schools up and down the state, and I think the community colleges have a voice in that. My question about the state is, from what I've heard in our meetings, primarily the main thing the governor's been most vocal about with us has been, well, two things: adult education and distance education, online education. But as we see these bills coming through the pipeline, do we get a sense of how both the bills that we support or the bills that we oppose may be heard by the governor when it hits his desk?
Yes, I mean, I think the amendments that you've seen to bills like SB 195, which deals with the statewide goals for higher education, I think that bill has definitely been shaped by what I think the administration has communicated in terms of what they're looking for and what would complement some of the work that's already taken place on the CSU and UC side in terms of looking at metrics for measuring progress toward specific goals for those two systems. Similarly, I think on AB 955, the summer and winter intercession bill, I think we've gotten a sense that that's a difficult policy call. I think the view is that you can make credible arguments on both sides. So that's one where it's unclear what the final outcome might be. On SB 173, the adult ed bill, I think it was clear that the administration had a process that was already in play, if you will, through the budget. And then on other bills, trying to think of the online ed SB 520 that Senator Steinberg had. I think there's another example of something that was made a 2-year bill in light of some of the other things that are happening, sort of on the natural, if you will, around distance education. So, we're getting a sense, and certainly we'll be communicating much more with them in the coming days as the session winds down. Quite honestly, I'm relatively pleased that we have one bill that remains where we have an opposed position, and the other bills that either we supported, the one we sponsored was signed, or others where we've had concerns, we've been able to successfully negotiate amendments that really take away those concerns and make the bills much more livable, if you will. And I think SB 440 is a perfect example of that. And I think that's something we're going to want to continue going forward, certainly with the administration and with the legislature.
And I appreciate that too, because that's good news, because I hope this system has been very responsive to the governor's priorities as well, and I want to applaud the chancellor for working closely with the governor and the legislature, because I think as the governor's office and the governor himself has articulated priorities, we've stepped up and been willing to respond and engage in conversation and move things forward.
Yes, and I would just add one comment about AB 955. It does go back to the Assembly now to get approval of the changes that were made in the Senate. I'd love to be optimistic that we could be successful in the Assembly getting it voted down, but I think realistically we have to assume that it's headed for the governor's desk. And I do believe we're going to have to all of us who believe genuinely this is bad public policy for California are going to have to speak out forcefully with the administration to help them understand what a huge policy change this is for the state of California. We have had historically free at first, and then very low cost, open and equal access. And this bill, I believe, fundamentally changes that equation. And I've had conversations with not only Assembly Member Williams, but numerous members of the Assembly and the Senate, including the Speaker last week, the President Pro Tem last week. And they just simply don't see as clearly as I think we need to help them see what this change would do in terms of setting up, I believe, in the future, the opportunity for the legislature to do to California's community colleges what they've been forced to do to UC and CSU, which is to say the next time the budget goes in the tank to this board, well, if you need more money, we can't give it to you. Tell your colleges to raise fees on all those intercession students, and I'm worried it'll work its way into the regular semesters, and get the money you need by taxing, if you will, the students. So I've said to anybody who will listen, you can amend this bill as much as you want, but it doesn't change the fundamental policy shift this bill would enact in California. We need to make that case with the governor. As we all know, the governor went forward to the public when Proposition 30 was passed and said to the public, pass this measure and we will not have to raise fees. And the public passed the measure, and now here we are with a bill that would create a 200% fee increase on some students and provide some students access to the highway of higher education who have money, leaving those who don't behind. So we have to stick to our guns, make this case very forcefully with the administration in hopes that the governor will, at the end of all this, see what a horrible public policy shift this is and veto the bill.
Member Malumet?
I like the way you said that. That very clearly explains why we are different, because some of the originators of the bill said, well, CSU does this, so it's okay if we do, but we are different in the way you explained it, so I like that. So be sure and put that in your written information to the governor. My question is, who is the education advisor to our governor now? Who's going to be helping him as he looks at these bills?
There are two people that we've been working with in the administration. One is Kathy McBride, and the other one is Camille Esch. And then, of course, the governor's legislative director, Gareth Elliott.
Okay. And I'm just going to share a little birdie told me session ends Thursday midnight, not on Friday.
You're correct. My understanding is they are trying to end early for Yom Kippur.
Thank you.
If I might add, just onto the Chancellor's comment about AB 955, I certainly didn't mean to suggest by my comments that we were going to ease up on pushing that issue and being very forceful in where we are on the policy.
Yes, certainly, it's backwards. The first step in trying to get something like this done is to address the mission. Maybe after you've addressed the mission and you've clearly stated to everybody else in the state that we're going to do something different, and after that you can begin to push legislation like this through. Certainly not advocating that, but just saying that it's backwards. On the federal-state issue, overlapping area veterans, AB 13, Rocky Chavez, Knight, Senate bill. Representative Miller from Florida has been working on a tuition seamless approach for veterans over the last year and a half or so. I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about the difficulties that we're encountering with AB 13, the non-resident tuition for veterans bill.
Certainly, I think one of the challenges with that bill has been the cost associated, or projected cost associated with providing veterans and members of the service with in-state tuition for community colleges and for the CSU and the UC. Outside of that, I don't know that anyone has really had any policy objections to the notion of providing that benefit to veterans and active duty service members.
But it's dragging.
Excuse me?
The bill is dragging, so it's
yes, it is.
Amended or efforts to amend it.
It has been amended significantly, and as it sits now, it really, at least for the community colleges, does not extend very much beyond what existing law is for us in terms of providing that benefit to veterans.
Have you heard any cost estimates as to what this might mean? What is driving the opposition, whatever it might be, against?
Yeah, at the risk
as
of,
it was initially.
At the risk of restating a number that I haven't been able to personally verify, I had heard numbers as high as $5 million, and I think it just depends on the numbers of veterans that might avail themselves of that benefit. So
probably the fact is that we really don't know. It probably is not. Would probably in the end not be significant. Maybe.
I think it's difficult to predict for certain.
It's certainly a difficult one to predict, but one that's frustrating because. The investment potential is there. I think maybe the legislators, those that are in opposition because of the cost issues, probably taking a look at it just straight cost as opposed to seeing the benefit of doing so. But I guess it's still being worked on, so we'll see how it goes. It is a difficult area because it's both a federal issue and a state issue. And maybe we can get it reconciled. Any other comments, members? Questions? Thank you, Vice Chancellor.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, President Baca, members of the board. We heard a moment ago Vice President Baum mentioned distance education and the governor's interest in this, and so we do want to bring the board up to date on the 2013 distance education report to the Board of Governors, and with that, I'll turn it over to Vice Chancellor Russell.
Good morning, President Baca, Chancellor Harris, and members of the Board of Governors. Distance education has been on the forefront of many newspaper educational journal over the last year specifically, with the increase of information about MOOCs and other things going on. And it's always been an interest of this board as well previously. So what we wanted to do, we do this report as identified in the standing order, that we do this report every 2 years and give you an update on the numbers of distance education and the kind of the changes in the system. This is the 7th report of that. Okay, and it's also important to understand that the distance education report that we do includes all kinds of distance education. Sometimes we lump in, we say distance education, everyone just thinks totally of the online application, but we do have some delivery of distance education through correspondence, television, and other sorts of processes. They're minimal, but we do have those other definitions there. And then also just up front to let you know that this is not a report to update you on the $16.9 million that was set aside for in the governor's budget for the distance education online initiative. Be happy to answer any questions about that, but the focus of this is more a look back at the distance education. One of the things to point out is 1 in 4 California community college students takes an online course every year. And the data is beginning to show, if you look from back when we started tracking this, 2005-06, up to current time, you can see that the percent of headcount that is distance education has continued to increase more and more over the years. Now about 27%. Of the courses are offered online. Over the last year also, well, over the last few years, with the decrease in enrollment that happened, one of the interesting things is the decrease in the regular classroom enrollment dipped quite a bit. We lost a lot of students in the system over the last couple of years due to the budget cuts and the workforce reduction. But the amount of reduction in the distance ed courses has been less overall than in the regular classroom. So it does show that it's holding its focus and holding its ability to be a delivery system that the colleges are investing in and using and sticking with it even in these tough budget years. One of the things I wanted to point out in this map, I know is very small, and it is actually an interactive map. We have the ability now with GPS systems to actually dig down into zip codes to give you some indication of the usage of online education across the state. And just visually, if you look at the blue map, what you see with the darkest color is distance education enrollments of 40 to 100%. So the students, and as you might expect, the darkest colors are in the rural areas out where students maybe have no other option but to take their courses online. And then you can also see in the green and the pinkish color that the pink is decreasing amount from 2006 to 2011, and green is increasing amount of online education, or distance education overall. So it's interesting to see where the change is occurring. And unfortunately, I mean, the map does lend itself to drilling down and looking. So if we wanted to really look at the LA area, you could see more specifically. We could blow it up, but just for the purposes of this presentation, it's just basically an overall view of the state and the emphasis that most of the growth, most of the emphasis on distance education has been in the rural, hard-to-reach areas of the state. And then the other thing to notice is that when we talk about degree completion, that over half of the colleges now have degrees which can be completed totally online. So we're getting to the point not only that we can just offer the courses, but we can actually let students fulfill their degree requirements and complete their degrees online. So it's becoming more prevalent and more things are happening. In this chart, you can see that 56 colleges offering degrees and certificates online, and then on the far right, 587 total degrees. So there's a lot happening in the state, a lot of degrees that are available to students. Then I want to shift just a minute to some surveys that were done, some by our office, some by other researchers. And LeBaron did a great job of pulling together the Distance Ed report, which I hope all of you have had a chance to read it. It goes very much in depth on all of these little points that we're bringing up, and also provides a reference to many of those research studies that are done out there. But what we find is overall that students do have a high satisfaction with the delivery of online education. Distance education, sorry, I make the same mistake, substituting online with distance education. And the numbers continue to show that overall students are satisfied. The other thing that often gets talked about with distance education is there enough deep diving, more critical thinking, and those kinds of activities happening in distance education courses? It's always a fear that students are able to kind of get an easy A or a way to get through a course and just kind of skim the surface of the course. What we find in polling the students, that the students say that they really do have a lot of critical thinking going on inside their course, that they're challenged, that they are working hard, and the faculty are making sure that they're reaching the objectives that the courses are meant to achieve. More data just on the number of students who agree that distance education is a positive effect on them. The next thing are the student retention, and some of this does come into play when we're going to expand this distance education in the online initiative. What are the things that we need to look at? Obviously, we need to look at course development. We need to look at making sure that courses have the right kinds of learning activities within them. But also we're finding through some of the research and discussion that the student services provided and wrapped around the courses are sometimes as important as the course themselves. So being able to have face-to-face interaction and having access to things like counseling, tutoring, proctoring, all the sorts of things that a student would get in a traditional course, having that easily accessible in an online fashion, a distance ed fashion, is important. So when we look at the retention, these are some of the methods of retention that seem to be very important. So faculty contacting students, early alert notifications, instructional redesign of the curriculum, counselors contacting students, and then predictive analytics is, a new thing that's out there that the MOOCs have been making great use of, something that we can learn probably and start incorporating more into our systems. This also shows you the traditional versus the distance education success rates. The lighter blue being traditional and the darker blue being distance education. They are going up overall, but there still is a distance between the distance ed delivery and the traditional delivery. Something that's a challenge as we do beef up our online system and go out for our online initiative is to be aware that there is a difference there and we need to achieve better success with our distance education delivery. And I'm going to, LeBaron, would you like to talk about your echo gap?
Sure. One of the things that Barry talked about in terms of retention and success is a concept that I've developed called the echo gap as a part of my doctoral program, which is basically the difference in retention and success. We develop a mathematical formula, but essentially when a student gets a W or a D or an F in a course, they have the ability to retake that course again. Up to 3 times without a petition and a 4th time with a petition. When that student re-enrolls in the course, that constitutes an echo, coming back again. But state policy pretty much also says that when the student gets a W or a D or an F, the college receives compensation for the FTES as if the student got a positive grade. So when you compound those numbers over any given term, that represents this echo effect. So about 3% of our FTES and distance ed constitutes this echo gap. And at 3% and 139,000 FTES, we're looking in the neighborhood of about $16 million a year. So essentially, the ability to reduce the echo gap is a primary component for what we're striving to do, particularly in this new initiative element.
Then moving back again to the idea of courses, of programs being delivered through distance education. One of the things I wanted to make you aware of is that we work closely with the Accrediting Commission. When my office approves courses, programs, we immediately alert the colleges to the next step for getting their program approved is to submit it to the Accrediting Commission so that it can then get on the list, the federal list of approved programs in the country, so that students are able to get financial aid or veterans benefits and those sorts of things. So we try to make a good handoff of that information. One of the elements of that, of the accreditation process, is that if a degree can be offered online, more than 50% of the courses in a degree can be offered online, then they need to be alerted and a substantive change has to go in to the Accrediting Commission. So we are trying to sync up our numbers and make sure that our colleges that are getting up to that, as we said, we had 56 colleges that have these online programs. We need to make sure that they do get them into the substantive change process and get them approved by the Accrediting Commission as well. So we kind of, we cannot, as a state agency, do that process for the colleges. The colleges are the ones who are accredited. But we do our best to alert them, encourage them to send the information in to make sure that those changes are brought to the surface in the accrediting process as well. Also, accessibility is a big issue that we take very seriously. We work very closely with the student services staff at the chancellor's office who have responsibility for accessibility. And so there are guidelines out there specifically for distance education on accessibility. We have a high-tech center training unit that provides help to all of the colleges if they need assistance in how to deal with students who have some sort of disability. We have high-tech programs that do that. We have a captioning and transcription service that's run through one of the campuses, College of the Canyons?
Yes.
Sorry. Has that grant at this point, so that if there is a course that needs to be captioned, the college can make use of funds there to make sure that any course that they put out there is accessible by students with disabilities. And that's just a general overview of the information that was in the big report. We didn't want to step through all the information, but if you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer them.
Member Asumi?
Well, first I want to thank Vice Chancellor Russell and LeBaron so much for this presentation. In my day job, in my other hat, I do a lot of research on online education in the K-12 level, and so to have all of this data and all of the work that you've done on higher education and community college has been incredibly helpful for me over the years, and this particular report has been especially so as I've gone through it. So I just want to, tell you how much I appreciate all the work that you've put into this. Having done that type of research myself, I can see how much work it does take to put something like this together. Secondly, just for a point of clarification, I know at the K-12 level, when students want to take, let's say, a virtual course online, that they need to, through a K-12 school, they need to be in a county that is contiguous to the county in which the school is established. And so is that an impediment? Certainly it's an impediment at K-12, but is that an impediment that also affects higher ed? So for example, if somebody in Kings County wants to take a course, online course in San Diego, is that going to be a problem?
No, there is no restriction on the offering of those courses. So we have students from around the state, and it's interesting because I was at College of the Siskiyous before coming to the Chancellor's office, and the counselors there know specifically where courses are. They do a little bit of research themselves. So when a student comes in and has a gap in their offerings for that semester, and the college doesn't offer that class, but the student needs it, they'll often refer the students to one of the other campuses in the state that has that access. That will be an outcome of the online initiative, is to streamline that process and to make it much easier so that people don't have to kind of dig and go around to all the different sites. It'll all be collected in one place, and it really will not be a matter of geography anymore. It will just be a totally online presence.
So it's because you said that the number of degrees that are possible to be achieved just through purely an online process is increasing a lot. So it is possible for somebody, let's say in Alpine County, to achieve a degree going all the way through, let's say, San Diego City College or wherever, for that entire degree, and never really leaving Alpine County.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Member Lansky?
Since you mentioned the online initiative, that'll be coming here in terms, because it's been set out to the field, correct, to see.
Right, just a quick update is we sent out a request for interest to all of the districts. That we did get a lot of districts who are interested in applying for the funds that became available. There were actually 3 areas that the governor provided funds. The online initiative was one of those. The ed plan was one, and the common assessment was the other. There were 3 areas that an RFI was sent out. We got back a list of colleges who are interested. September the 4th, a full request for proposal was delivered to all of those colleges who expressed an interest. And so they have now 30 days to develop a full proposal that's going to come back to the Chancellor's office, will be reviewed in our regular process of how we do that. The intention coming back to the November Board of Governors meeting with the awarding of those 3 contracts.
And there were 17 districts that expressed interest.
A comment and a question. One of the comments I have is that I think it would be helpful in terms of talking about student services or services beyond the actual content and class portion of the a class that's being offered. If there was some kind of a best practices booklet, and I don't know who would do it, whether the CSSOs or the CIOs or Beth Smith is doing it. Because, I mean, I think that that needs to be shared around the state of, here's a most effective way of doing tutoring. And if you're having to pay for it, here's a very cost-effective way. I mean, when we were walking through, the librarian was saying that they have kind of an online tutoring and you could do it to 4 in the morning. But I guess then who does it, how much, you know. Is there an effective way to do counseling, to do SCPs? All of these kinds of services and library, et cetera. I just think that it'd be nice to have some kind, and if Beth's doing it, well, thank you. I'm looking forward to that. And the only other question I have, because I'm not real sure I'm totally knowledgeable, and I'm curious if all of the colleges are knowledgeable, but the section on state authorization. Because I didn't even know, it says state authorization has been on the laws almost every site for decades, but largely ignored. So is there something our colleges are supposed to be doing that they're not doing? And who's informing them of that? And is it just for colleges that are targeting students in other states, or is it for colleges who, by some chance, a student in another state decides to register?
We have been spending a lot of time unraveling this within the state. I've been meeting with the governor's office, the CSU, the UC, the State Board of Consumer Affairs, a whole group who has oversight in the distance education processes. And yes, the federal government, these rules have been in place. They actually issued rules that were then struck down in court. But it still is the law. It still is in the federal regulations. So they're going through another round of commenting and rulemaking on this process, hopefully trying to clarify some of the issues. We have, are recommending that the state, all these state entities that I just discussed, join with a national organization that is being run through WICHE, the Western Interstate Exchange Program. And what this does is create a reciprocal agreement with all the states so that that we're assured that each state is taking care of their responsibility for distance education. It all boils down to that if we have a California student who is taking an online course from an institution outside of the state where we don't really have jurisdiction over that state, we want to make sure that the state is following our rules and taking care of our citizens. By the same turn, those other states want to know that the California institutions are doing the same thing. So rather than, the process now is that each institution, all 112 of our campuses, must write a letter to all other 49 states to get approval to be able to offer courses online. And it is the fact that if a student happens to end up on your campus, it has nothing to do with recruiting or those sorts of things. Many campuses, in fact, especially those campuses who have very small numbers of out-of-state students, are actually restricting enrollment and saying, we will not allow out-of-state students to be in our distance education programs because it's too problematic to get approval from all the 49 states. Some of the states have very high fees and a very interesting process to be able to get that approval done. So some colleges are just choosing not to get involved, and they're only focusing, in our case, in California students. But then there are some, Coast Community College District obviously is one of the large ones who serves a huge veterans population. They have students all over the world. And so they have to go through a process of getting approval from all of those states. It's my understanding, and LeBaron holds a monthly meeting with the distance ed coordinators and provides a lot of this information, has discussion. We have 2 lead people, one at San Diego and one at the Coast District, who are representing us on a national group trying to deal with this. They update the distance ed coordinators every month about any new things that are coming out. So yes, we are doing our best to provide information to the colleges.
Is that in writing somewhere? Because my question becomes, what about a college that the distance ed coordinator isn't in connection or clear enough connection, or that's not registering because that's not my area of what I'm interested in?
Yeah, it is a challenge to make sure everybody's there. And one of the challenges is it's not really a state responsibility. It's not the chancellor's office responsibility. It's the local college's responsibility, and where they're going to get pointed out would actually be through the accrediting process when they check up on that federal requirement. And so we're doing our best to get information out to the colleges so we don't get anybody disconnected from any look that the accreditors might be having.
Right. Vice President Bond? Excuse me.
No, I just wanted to address the saturation point that the board member brought up. First of all, we identify a single point of contact, what we call a SPOC, for every community college that has a distance ed coordinator, and we recertify that every year. We hold regular scheduled meetings, third Friday of every month, from 12 to 1:30. We archive those meetings on CCC Confer, and we've been averaging about 80 to 85 member participation each month. We do that between September and June. So even if people can't make the meetings are archived with PowerPoints, and we have a standing agenda item. Every month we address state authorization.
Okay. Thank you.
A couple quick related questions. So what percent of, you've charted the growth in enrollment in distance education courses. What percentage of those enrollments come from out of state? Would you say, is it fewer than 10%? Is it more than 10%?
Oh, definitely fewer than 10%.
Okay,
It's a small number, but as Barry indicated, some colleges do this in a big way. Coast Bend one, MiraCosta also has a large out-of-state level of participation. And each community college district, I mean, they can make the local choice as to whether they want to serve those students from certain states and not from other states. So.
Yeah, sure. In my district, our CEO has explained to the board that he sees this as a revenue possibility as well, and I guess Coast is in the same boat as this. But one thing that I'm very excited about, and we were talking about this as well, is to consolidate and put together something of a statewide catalog of online distance education opportunities. Is very exciting, would serve students so effectively, and will be an enormous resource for within the state, and then ultimately I think a model for the nation, and then we'll probably even get international interest in people and ways to serve our veterans around the globe as well, that they can take classes at a community college, and to have one place to kind of see all the degrees and certificates and courses that are available is very exciting. My last question is just, you went over the you identified a retention gap of 7% between, and then you previous to that, you shared some statistics about student satisfaction and what they judged on the quality. Is there a gap between distance and non-distance students when it comes to that aspect?
We have not surveyed the traditional face-to-face environment, so I really can't address that. In our satisfaction survey, we did have about 55 colleges participate in that, where we identified some 57,000 students that were surveyed to get these results. But we did not do a comparison in that level.
Sure, because I know there's some people that still say, no matter what, it's better to have students face-to-face contact with them. But if they're getting the instruction and then they're performing based on the instruction they receive, it will be interesting to demonstrate the value and the effectiveness of the online
I
instruction.
think that, and the research supports this as well, we would all prefer to be with other people in a face-to-face environment. But distance education allows those that can't, for whatever lifestyle reasons, to take a course to be able to complete it. So.
Member Sumi?
Thanks. And just one quick follow-up question. Given the fact that you have this rising increase in the number of students who are taking at least one online course, and the satisfaction rate is huge, so that you figure that if you extrapolate that's going to go take off even more in the coming years. You have a section on faculty training, and so and some of the programs that you list here look very promising. But I mean, is the faculty training going to be able to keep up with the demand for this? Because it really seems like the demand by the students is taking off exponentially. Training's a little bit more of a lagging type of factor.
Professional development is a key component in the online initiative grant that will be coming out. So we're looking forward to see how colleges will suppose how to solve that problem.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you.
Is there anything else? Thank you very much for a very good, informative report. Great work. We will now move on to board reports. I believe that we will begin with our new representative, Jenna Barrera.
Hello. So my name is Jenna Barrera. I'm from Salinas, California. I go to school in Monterey for CSU Monterey Bay and Monterey Peninsula College. I'm really excited to be on the board, and hopefully I can reflect the views of students both at my community college and around my region. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Member Malumed?
Thank you. I wanted to report that I am on the WEDPAC EdPAC committee, and I have participated remotely by phone and conference call, hopefully to be at the next meeting in October if I can make it. I also wanted to share that on May 21st, I was part of the White House recognition of Centers for International Trade. So I was back there with people from the California community colleges who got the award. And I think there was another college and there was another representative related to colleges back there getting awards. So that was very interesting. I enjoyed being there and doing that. The first week in, let me go back. So my husband is a recently elected member of Congress, and I've been getting to know some of the newly elected and some of the current members of Congress, and I was thinking, I haven't really lobbied a lot about community colleges. Part of what I'm doing is getting to know people, and interestingly, this is not exactly what people are talking about education. More budget, the gun control, the immigration issues. As I'm hearing what they're talking about, I'm not hearing the education a lot about the healthcare reform and implementing that. So I'm building my relationships, and right now it's not the topic of discussion. So as I introduce myself, I tell them that I'm on this board and how many colleges we are, and just sharing who I am a little bit. But that moment will come. I'm just laying in wait. And in the first week of August, I traveled with 36 members of Congress to Israel for a week. So I had a chance to get to know people quite a bit. And California has 12 newly elected members of Congress, I think out of the delegation of 53. So many of them had been in the legislature before. So I wanted to encourage people to lobby your representative and, locally see them and write them letters and talk to their office, especially the 12 newly elected, because they're very excited to continue to be there and they're very open to what's going on. So even though there might not be issues right at this moment about community colleges, feel free to keep in touch with them because they are very active and engaged. And the last thing I wanted to share, I've talked to a little bit of people about being in this world and how the members of Congress have their pin, and it's a security pin. I just wanted to share I'm wearing the spouse pin that they gave us. It's mostly a security thing around the Capitol and around Washington, D.C., but I'd be happy to show that to anybody who's interested. It's one of those fun things for us spouses, so thank you.
Absolutely. It's great to have you there because I know you're going to put the agenda, the community college agenda on those
Oh, yes.
folks'
Oh, yes.
pages. Member Hawkins?
I just wanted to welcome Jenna to the board, and I look forward to working with you in the future. I have no report.
Member Asumi?
Actually, just a few comments, not about things I've done, but again, echo what the other members. Just first of all, to welcome Jenna Barrera to the board. We're so pleased to have you on the board. Looking forward to having you represent the students. We've had a terrific relationship with the students in the system, members of the Student Senate, and so we're looking forward to having you. Every one of the student members has been a real joy to have on our board, so we're looking forward to working with you, Jenna. The other thing is that I wanted to say, that I personally am looking forward to a continuation of the Baca-Baum administration, and that, that during the this past year, we've gone through a lot of potentially contentious issues, and the leadership that both the president and the vice president have shown have been really tremendous, and so I think that bodes well for the future of our board, and I'm glad that they have taken on the responsibility of continuing for another year and accepting that nomination. So my congratulations to the both of you, and we're pleased with the board. And the final thing I wanted to say is simply that to thank the Chancellor's office, and Jerry, to Chancellor Harris, members of the staff, going through a health issue right now, and that, because of the help and assistance of the Chancellor's office, it's made it, easy for me to continue to carry out my duties while I'm going through this, and that type of consideration and thoughtfulness I really appreciate, and so thank you to all of you, and I look forward to continuing when all of this is over as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. Member Belansky?
I also want to echo what others have said and to welcome you, Jenna, and may you have a really important and a great time here on the board and really vocalize what the students would like us to hear. I would note that I had the opportunity to go to the budget workshop at Sierra College. You mentioned the budget workshops at the beginning. It was quite well done, and I think that it's evident that the CBOs of our state find that extremely important. The only thing I was surprised by is how few questions there were this time around, so maybe it's becoming clearer. I also, just to say thank you to Chancellor Harris, who was already noted it, that he had come to the Peralta District to do a presentation on our first day, a flex day, and I think that was important. I think it was well received. I think it's important to have people from outside the district to come and to make the case of things that need to be addressed and need to be worked on, rather than constantly looking at yourself and looking at the internal organization. I have the opportunity on the 23rd and 24th to go to the Student Success Summit that's being held in Sacramento by the Chancellor's Office, and I'll also have the opportunity to attend the RP Group's Strengthening Student Success conference at the beginning of October. Luckily, it's in South San Francisco.
Member Reed? No report. As President Bond?
I know you'll be saying the same, but I can't express more enthusiastic than our appreciation to the West Hills District for their hospitality that they've shown. Every individual that I've come into contact with has expressed enthusiasm for the mission of serving students. a warmth and a sense of real community and shared purpose that I think is it serves as an inspiration to me personally, and I think up and down the state. So I want to say thank you for that this experience. It's been terrific. In addition, I want to welcome Jenna and look forward to working with you and seeing you in November in Sacramento. But Member Azumi was so kind to tell us congratulations, but we're very grateful that you've made the effort to be here, and so I want you to know personally how much that means to all of us, and we continue to depend on your wisdom and leadership and judgment on this board. Finally, just on a more routine note, President Bach and I have been invited to attend the retreat of the CEOs, the presidents of the Association for Independent California Colleges and University. That will be in October, and that includes all the private universities, including Stanford and USC and Loyola Marymount and others. And I'm hoping that we will continue to move the ball forward in increasing pathways for community college students to the four-year universities and the private universities in our state. And I will keep the Chancellor's office in the loop on that, and maybe we'll have some new opportunities to pursue with them.
Very good. Thank you. And just before we close here, again, West Hills has been a great host. Chancellor Gornick and President Goldsmith and Workentine, your work is clearly evident. In meeting with the trustees last night, I can see that they're very proud of the work that you and the staff and the faculty do here. It's also great to see such a cohesive unit working together, even as you present different ideas and different points of view. It makes things work very well for the community that you serve, both in terms of jobs and providing the assistance in so many other different areas. So again, on behalf of the board and the Chancellor's office, thank you very much again for being such a great host. And with that, we will adjourn. Adjournment?
I just want to make sure there's no public forum, Jerry.
Public forum?
Okay.
And Jerry, of course, thank you very much for everything that you do and working with the staff here to set us up. Meeting adjourned.